Yeah, that's what I just didn't know. So, in the kitchen, Betsy's husband Randy's in the house.
You know, I kind of am careful about cover seats.
78, no? So we didn't have a lot to do.
I just went So he puts on these assemblies that are a combination of storytelling, music, singing, you know.
Ahorita estaba esperando a mi hermana. Le quiero poner la moneda.
I called you this morning, but I didn't
I'm sorry, I can't stop.
And Isaac, how old are you? 5. Okay, Jonah's 5 today. Okay, Jonah's 5 too. Not gonna come. Great.
That's good. Come together. Are you getting to the cabin? I don't know.
You never know when you say friends or not. What do I use to make with
Hold on one second. Shot. Thank you.
We just got married in.
Yeah, okay.
All the Irish music.
no air conditioning. It's like 110 outside, so you know it's like 120 inside. Anyways, it was just a scene, and what always happens is everybody kind of looks at us like, what is this old woman doing there? And my girlfriend gets up, and she just laughs. She has like this great voice, and then you're with the band, everybody's your friend, you know, they buy you a drink and everything. So she got up
Played and plastic ware and come through. Help yourself. Find a table. Salt and pepper and condiments are over here.
I get it.
We used to go down to Mexico with Gretchen and Heidi and their mom, and meet up with their mom and dad, and then down in Mexico.
We're in Mexico. Oh.
Where it was, yeah. And I remember I saw my first bull fight with their dad.
That's your last one too.
But your dad, it was like 140 degrees. And your
sauerkraut with your hot dog and you put it in a napkin and then you walk around eating sauerkraut. All the time you eat sauerkraut.
It's great, isn't it? So I know it's pretty good.
Oh, that'd be good.
Here's Heidi and Gretchen. There's, remember I told you about Ilsa? The German woman, that's her on the left.
Yeah.
The one, that's Billy's mother-in-law. I'm not sure. Will they be clear? You know? Yeah. Yeah. I remember that house. Yeah. And the one in the old car is the boy that was, you know, that was the guy in the village. That's Pam Ann. That's Eddie. That's Eddie. Also, there he is again. Wow. That's how I remember them. That's how I remember him like that too. Oh God.
Hey there.
See Jim smiling there, right? Margaret, isn't that a beautiful shot?
Yeah.
Huh? My grandmother and grandmother. Jim and the kids. There they are.
But I remember riding anywhere we want here. I gotta figure out where it is on this map. What happened? I was late.
This is my youngest son, Ben. Oh, hi. I'm fine. How are you?
Just leave it there for the next person to use.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Happy
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jim. Happy birthday to you.
didn't want to. Probably Danny.
Give me a home where Jim Hunt can roam and the dance and the liberals play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word and the world runs better each day. Jim Hunt, we pray, you survive your adventures each day without broken bones or altered bones. I'll be waiting to hear if you're okay. Oh, give me a man who always takes a stand in defense of the poor and the meek, who always is heard to give encouraging words to help people land on their feet. Jim Hunt, we pray, you survive your adventures each day without broken bones or emergency phones, while we wait to hear if you're okay. Those indeed is one of his creeds, and we thank you for being that way. But seldom we see Jim pay any heed to dangers that lurk on his way. Jim Hunt, we pray, you survive your adventures each day without broken bones or emergency phones, while we wait to hear if you're okay.
We'll be right back. She wants to rest.
Amazed at this celebration. I never anticipated anything like this. Really, I'm the kind of a person who never made much about birthdays. Margaret had to carry the ball on that. Some years I even forgot my own birthday. But anyway, I'm much indebted to my daughters, particularly, in their terrific skills in organization, and Laura, and all of you who contributed to this. But you know, such a fuss, such a big deal. Who's going to want to do this again in 10 years? Well, I have some things I want to say. And, you know, back in 1960, when John Kennedy was running for president, any number of people would come up to me and say, you look like John Kennedy. Wow, that was the boost. And then about 16 years later, when Jimmy Carter was running for president, a few people, not as many, came up to me and said, hey, you look like Jimmy Carter. Well, that was good, but not as good after all. Jimmy wasn't as pretty looking as John. But anyway, he was presidential, and that's something. Kirsten always said I was presidential.
I feel for you.
But anyway, now in these latter years, particularly these last 3 years, would you believe not one person Not one has come up to me and said I look like Barack Obama. I want you to know that age does things to your presidential presence. Well, anyway,
It's the ears, Dad, it's the ears.
that's just all about vanity, and he doesn't amount to much. But I want to, speaking of presidents, did you note what President Obama said the other day at a prayer service about his most important prayer was in behalf of the poor? And aren't we fortunate to have a president with that sensitivity? Aren't we fortunate? You know, as a people, we are literally commissioned by God to seek peace, brotherhood, care for one another, especially care for the poor and suffering. And this is something that Christ constantly reminded people and lived himself as a person born in poverty and died in disgrace and suffering. And he called upon us to carry out his mission now with his help. And I believe, you know, that God's grace, if we accept it, will fill us, our spirits, and enable us to carry out his will on earth and to seek that peace, especially in the care for those who have less and who are hurting. So that we can carry out the mandate that's been given us to really to bring everybody before God. Now, God is also, I believe, you know, present to us through others. And in my life, I've been fortunate by my parents, my siblings, my teachers, Margaret, my children, other family members and friends have been, for me, an extension of God's love, helping me in my mission. And I'm grateful to them, and I thank you all. Thank you.
God bless.
And I want to mention, because Dad, I don't even know if you know this, but on the invitations there was a suggestion that in lieu of gift that people donate to the Oregon Food Bank, and I know in your name a lot of people did that, and so there's been a great contribution that way, so thank you for doing that.
I tell you, the way you girls have handled this thing,
Well, it wasn't just the girls.
It wasn't just the girls.
I am really tremendously impressed. I glory in your skills and your care, and I deeply appreciate it.
Oh, all us girls just really appreciate that.
Okay, party on, get some dessert, and we'll play gym trivia. So the first question is, where did Jim first meet Margaret?
Yeah, well, first of
That's.com.
First meet Margaret.
Oh, I know.
But you're on the right track.
Yeah, you're
Bonnie, Rachel, what? Seattle. You're
She
near
worked in a store and he'd come in when he was home from the Merchant Marine. And then he asked her, is that right?
Okay. For which of his children did Jim miss the birth? Okay, so there were 7 births. Joyce.
I think it was Susan. Because I remember when I was a teenager, and I remember just being scared to death. Martha came and said, I'm in labor, and it was just like, oh God.
And she drove herself to the hospital.
So it was Susan.
Because Dad was on.
So do I.
There really are 2 times when my husband's supposed to be present.
Which family members went with Jim on the March on Washington?
Well, where's Junior?
Junior. There he is.
Stand up, Junior.
I was there.
Can you tell us about that?
Kathy,
What, did you drive there?
no, March on. Washington.
Rachel wants to know if you could tell us about that March on
Tony.
Well, do you really want to hear about the whole thing?
Raise your hand. The other person who went. Raise your hand. The one who went. The other person who went. There you go.
Hey, we want to, Jesse wants to have some details.
March on Washington during the Civil Rights year. Martin Luther King. March on Washington, Washington, D.C. in 1963. 63?
Yeah, March on Washington.
Okay, yep, and those 3 went to participate.
Along with Robert and Bill McCoy.
Bob
Did you fly or drive?
What?
Did you fly or drive? Fly. And what, tell us about, you just decided.
Well, we also helped organize a busload of people who went
Oh,
from
you
Portland.
organized a busload of people?
Yeah, and Thelma DePass, who worked for us, she was on that bus, and she came to March on Washington with that group.
One of Dad's employees who was from Jamaica?
Well,
No,
she was
Puerto Rico.
from Panama.
Panama.
Panama. Her parents had come from Jamaica, but she was from Panama.
And she was on that bus?
She was on that bus.
She was on
sure.
the bus that they helped organize on that March on Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. What guild did Jim organize and head up in the late 50s and later?
Oh, I know that.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, try.
So, Liturgical Arts Guild?
Yes. Right on, yep.
The what kind of guild?
Liturgical Arts Guild, the group of, well,
And
Lisa
wait a minute.
Celsey's here, she was in that guild.
Lolita was original member of that group.
Yeah. Artists who worked on art and interiors of churches. That's what we did. Yeah.
Question, why was Jim picketing the Hilton?
Clue is George.
Yeah, which George?
George Wallace.
Yeah. Governor of
Alabama.
Yeah. Came to Portland and was going to stay at the
Hilton.
And the Jim Hunt family went and picketed.
And who all was there from the family?
I was there.
We all were. Mom was 2. They took a picture of her. She had a little sandwich board that Mom made that said, "Freedom now, not when I'm old."
I've been saying that ever since.
And it was in the Oregonian. Portland Recorder. Well, whatever. It was in our paper.
So I have to stop here just for a second. How hysterical is this to read through this list?
Great.
And there were a lot that couldn't be put on here.
He should have been in your rogues gallery, Billy. You
Yeah.
should put Jim in there in your rogues gallery. Yeah.
Dad wants to know if this is hysterical or historical.
Yes.
How long was Jim in jail when he chained himself to the door of the induction center?
Not long enough.
Overnight, one night.
One night?
No?
No, that's wrong.
Oh.
3 days.
6 hours, 3 days. 6 hours is close.
Betsy was there.
I was in the same jail. Our group got out, we were there for 8 hours. We got out that
We've
same
been
day.
there
in the evening.
8, 10 hours, yeah.
Yeah, 8 hours, I counted.
So I'll tell you guys that being born in 1962, some of my earliest memories are standing outside jails singing and sitting in courtrooms with my family members lined up, or being told that now we have to leave. Yeah.
You felt your pride.
Interesting times.
Well, listen, who was the most frustrated member of the family at that time, at that locking up on the...
Well, probably Eddie, right?
Who was most frustrated?
Tim.
Oh, Tim?
We didn't let him come.
Had to go
He
to
was
school.
really
Had to go to
upset about it.
He was a juvenile. He
Right.
was 16, I was 18, I could go.
Yeah, but all the stories he could have
Wearing a
told.
red snowsuit and a sandwich sign for JFK's campaign outside the Hilton downtown Portland. About that big.
So, to which convention was Jim a delegate for Oregon?
68 Democratic.
Yep. That's right, Democratic National Convention. Okay.
Delegate for who?
Eugene McCarthy.
And don't forget, the delegates were elected by the voters at large.
Yes.
And I was an absolute unknown. And you kids went out and put
Yes,
circulars
we did.
on cars all over.
Yes, we did.
Not because we wanted to.
It made me famous.
We need a door-to-door, oh my God.
Okay, number 8. How did Jim get Vi off the French ferry without her passport? Anybody remember that? No. Yes.
Gary?
I think Jim had to run back 8 miles to the hotel while she sat captive on the boat.
Did she have to go back and forth a couple times on the boat back to England, France?
Did not get off the boat.
You had to run back to the hotel and get her passport?
No, we had to talk them into letting her go and go through some special examination in Miami when we landed, which never took place. So, no, we got by, but for a while there, I would tell Vi that it's okay. I would write to her every day.
Poor Vi.
until she could come back.
So in keeping with the travel thing, I'm going to skip ahead to the last question. But where's Jim's favorite sleeping space while driving on days on end in Mexico with policy?
It's the car?
Well, come to think of it, that passport thing, that was 2 different deals. The ferry thing was when we didn't take her passport with us when we got on the ferry to go to Algiers.
Yeah.
And I thought that my passport was enough. The way
of course.
the guy had a passport, the woman just came along.
Oh!
Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, that's the way they were.
Wait a
That's the way they
second.
were operating on the trains and stuff, you know. So I just never. So anyway, but in Algiers they wouldn't let her off the ferry. And had to go back and went to Gibraltar, and they wouldn't let her off there. I had to get off and hire a taxi and go about 8 miles to the town that we had originally left from and get her passport and take my car then, and which was there at that hotel, and race back and present her passport and get her off that ferry. That was it. The other thing was leaving Spain once, they found out that her passport had expired while she was in Spain, and they wouldn't let her leave. And that's when I kept telling her that I would write to her faithfully every day.
In Spanish.
Right, so keeping on the theme. Go ahead. Where? Oh, where was Jim's favorite sleeping place? When driving for days on end in Mexico with Paula and Susie.
So how many people vote for a hotel?
No. It's a hunt now. Is it the car? Is it the car?
I'd say probably parked out in the desert someplace.
Did you submit this?
I submitted it, yeah. Okay, so Tim's the closest. There were many a night that in the morning when we woke up, we'd be in our sleeping bags on bare grounds by the side of the highway on patches of like fried up cow pies and stuff in the desert. He'd just pull over in the dark, you know, and say, okay, we're going to sleep right there with our sleeping bags down. It really saved on time and cost. And
But when it was
One morning we
stormy,
woke
just
up
sleep
and
in the
found
car.
out they'd slept right next to a huge anthill.
that's right.
Yeah, the car was a luxury that we got when it was raining. But we got to go to Mexico, so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, trade-offs. Always trade-offs. Okay, what happened when Jim and his brother Neil helped themselves to some abandoned railroad ties?
Disgrace the family.
What'd you say?
It disgraced the family.
They got busted.
Were you put in jail for that one too?
You know, Neil, my brother, from time to time he'd call me a scofflaw, and I guess I came by that honestly.
Yes, you did. Of course.
But anyway, I saw these ties that were dumped along the side of the railroad tracks, and they were used, they were old. They had nail holes in them, and they were cracked and stuff. So I picked up a couple and loaded them myself in my little pickup, extremely heavy, loaded with creosote, and took them back to the house. And Neil and Sue came to visit, and I told them that I knew where these great ties were, and would he come and help me get some more. So we went back there, and he and I loaded a couple of ties in the car. And just then along came the railroad engine, and the engineer hopped out and said, "You're going to be arrested. Those belong to the property of the railroad." And he called on his cell phone to the president of that little dinky railroad, and that guy showed up and said, we called the sheriff already. I said, well, here's my card. It's got my address on there. I'm not going to stand around here waiting. And we're shoving off. And we did. And Neil was trembling. He was literally trembling. He was unaccustomed to confronting the law and
Unaccustomed to confronting
getting
the law.
into problems. Notwithstanding what members of the family had said about him all through the years, about where he got his building materials for his house. Anyway, he was really scared.
He was
And so we were sitting there at the kitchen table, and this sheriff's car drove up, and this sheriff got
Inside
out.
the house, and the sheriff car drove up. I'm just letting people hear.
Oh, okay. The sheriff got out and came in and sat down. And he says, "Well," he says, I have to have a talk with you, robber barons." So anyway, I explained to him what had happened and so on. He says, "Well, I have to ticket you." And he wrote out a ticket for us and for each of us. And I saw his name on there. And I said, "Oh, you're Jim McDowell. You're in our Habitat for Humanity workers group." He's a guy that I had recruited regularly to help build houses. I was in charge of volunteers for Habitat for Humanity for years there. And he says, "Yeah," he says, "of course I know you." And but anyway,
$50.
about 6 weeks later, we had the hearing date in Salem, and Neil had to come down from Seattle for that hearing. And
for those of you who know Neil,
we lined up outside, and signed in, and then later we were advised not to come in because the plaintiff hadn't shown up.
my father's biggest fear was, my father's Neil Hunt, his biggest fear was he was going to have to work in a dog pound for his community service.
Neil was afraid of dogs.
Well, and these guys were in their 70s.
Yeah.
So they were older than the railroad ties.
And Jimmy called my dad, Martin, to recount this whole story about the arrest and all of this. And when you were talking to Martin, you said that the thing that bothered Neil the most is he had to spend the money to come back down for the scary
There was that too. Neil was frugal.
Because Jim is not. Just one more quick question. What activity did Jim carry over from his days as a merchant marine? By the mark?
Drinking.
Flirting.
Whistling.
Drinking?
Whistling it.
Flirting. Okay, what's
Traveling.
traveling? What skill? What's sailing? Flirting.
Sailing?
Keep saying flirting.
Sailing, you said it.
Sailing.
Sailing. Is that your Lolita?
Yeah.
Good job.
Sailing. I was going to say navigating.
I've been a wild rover for many a year, and I've spent all my money on whiskey and beer. Now save up my wages, keep money in store, and I never will play the wild rover no more, for it's no day never, no day never no more. Played the wild rover, but I'll never know more. And I went to an alehouse where I used to frequent. we shall overcome someday.
That was it.
We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome
Start whenever you want. Remember? Here, but you guys.
On the road to sweet heaven, we'll go in the road to sweet heaven, hurroo, hurroo. We'll go in the road to sweet heaven, sticking me hand in the road with me eye. I don't know that's a lie or cry. On your hallelujah. Drums and drums and drums and drums, hurroo, hurroo. Drums and drums and drums and drums, hurroo.
And so was your dad. You know,
Was your dad Wallace?
No, Neil.
one Neil.
And I knew got into trouble.
So it's very interesting how these things work out.
So, Grandpa, who was the biggest troublemaker of the crowd?
We know that.
Well,
The one that had 7 wives.
Jerry. Yeah.
her father was no slouch.
No slouch. In the troublemaking department.
You know, they wanted to go their way and do their thing, and that brought them into conflict with their parents and stuff like that. In those days, the parents would sort of hum and gauntlet, shape up or ship out. And so Martin shipped out. And,
He stowed away as a ship.
first he sailed, went on ships on the banana run.
Didn't that have a little to do with the seminary?
And later he did a lot of other things.
Well, he also ran away from the seminary. He escaped there and went to the seminary.
So anyway, when I started out as a traveling salesman at 19 years of age and went down into California, my father sent me a note and says, look up your brother Martin went down there. He works at the La Paula Inn. And so I walked into this place and I saw him there behind the desk at this residential hotel. And I said, Martin, you remember me?
No.
Oh yeah, Jim, Wallace, Jim.
Well, he was the oldest, right?
He was the oldest living, yeah.
So you were 8 or how many years younger than you?
Well, he was good 8 or 9 years older than I, yeah. So anyway, he kind of adopted me. He and your mother kind of adopted me, and they made sure that I brushed my teeth and that I wore clean clothes.
19 years.
19 or 20, yeah. And they insisted that I go out and buy a new suit, and they helped me pick it out. Things like that. When I drove, I was only learning how to drive, and I knew that gas bill went all the way to the floor. Anyway, I got in numerous little scrapes and accidents that Martin helped bail me out of.
I love hearing.
Probably Danny.
Give me a home where Jim Hunt can roam, and the dance and the liberals play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the world runs better each day. Jim Hunt, we pray, you survive your adventures each day. of broken bones, call emergency phones, while we wait to hear if you're okay. Just those in need.